Hello internet, Jazza here. So my demographics tell me that quite a lot of you are significantly younger than me. Don't worry, I'm not jealous of your youth at all. I also know from some of the videos that I put up and the conversations that we have in the comments and on Twitter and on the Snapchats. I never posted on Snapchat, what am I talking about? But I know from the conversations that we have and the way that you guys talk that a lot of you are from the LGBTQ+ community or allies of that community. And to you, I say, hey, girl, hey, bad gay. In a lot of ways, I'm really jealous of those of you that are like in your teens and early 20s and are in the gay community now, because I had no like YouTube when I was coming to terms with my sexuality, and I had no kind of like role models that I could look up to. It was literally the only gay people that I'd ever heard of were Graham Norton and Stephen Fry, who are lovely but don't provide a very broad kind of spectrum of different types of queer people, to be honest. I used to seek out queer media as much as I could. Whenever there was a TV show that was on later at night that had a gay kiss in it, I would stay up and watch it, or sneak down from my bedroom and turn on the TV really low so that I could actually like be exposed to any kind of gayness whatsoever. And I think I remember the first two gay themed books that I ever read were Mysterious Skin, which got turned into a movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which in retrospect has loads of like paedophilia in it and probably wasn't the best book for like a 16-year-old. No, 16-year-old fine, but it wasn't. I wish I'd had a softer landing into queer literature. Let's just say that. And then I think the second gay themed book that I ever read was Song of Achilles, because it had won quite a few awards and I was quite excited about the idea of Achilles being in like a gay relationship. Let's be fair, mainly because Brad Pitt played him in that movie Joy that everyone's like conveniently forgotten about, quite frankly. And that wasn't really an appropriate novel for like a young man to be reading as like a foray into LGBT literature. Like it was like a gay 50 Shades of Grey, just with like Greece as a backdrop and swords. I didn't have the best of luck when I was younger, really. Last year I teamed up with Penguin to suggest a load of queer themed books for LGBTQ+ month, and I kind of want to do that again, so because I wish that there had been somebody there suggesting that I read like books for teens. So these are, after this really, really long introduction that I've given you, so sorry, these are a handful of books that I wish that I had had access to when I was younger and queer teen. Cool? Okay. Why couldn't I have just started the video with that one sentence? If you're gonna do a list of like gay teen literature, you kind of have to have a David Levithan book in there. He did Will Grayson, which he wrote with John Green, which is like bloody amazing, to be honest. I read that last year, and then I heard everybody talk a load about Boy Meets Boy and how amazing this is, and I have like an adult cynical mind, and so when everything is like bubblegum and quite nice and lacks conflict, I kind of get annoyed. But then I think back to what I was like when I was a kid, and I needed this book. Like, I genuinely, legitimately needed this book. It's like the world that you wish you grew up in and that you wish you existed. And I think that if I had read this when I was younger, I would have had a higher expectation of how I wanted the world to perceive me, of how I wanted the world and how I expected the world to interact with me as a gay teenage guy. And it's kind of bubblegummy and sweet and very young adult fiction in that it like is based around a high school thing, a high school life. You're going to see a theme in quite a lot of those books. It is quite bubblegummy, but it's like quick and funny, and I essentially wish that somebody had given this to me when I was like 13, so that I would have the high expectations of society that I have now, if you know what I mean. So for higher expectations, Boy Meets Boy by David Levithan. I'm not going to do that for each book. That was weird. I remember when The Art of Being Normal by Lisa Williamson came out, everybody collectively really lost their shit because of the fact that it was a legitimately, like, funny novel in the young adult category that was, like, really moving and just also happened to be about, like, trans issues. It follows the life of David, who is a trans girl in high school, and fuck man, I think that, obviously not trans, like I'm painfully cisgender, but I really felt like I was getting an insight into kind of like this state of being of, okay, I'm aware of what I am now, what the fuck do I do? Do you know what I mean? What I also really like about this is that actually the main character's trans status, it's not the most, it's not the, like, the only characteristic of them. It's also a book about being from a poor background and going to a posh school, which, being in the UK and being around those kinds of environments where your class is probably the most defining aspect of you, rather than like your race or your gender identity, that I thought that was really interesting and insightful as well. And I wish I'd had this when I was younger, because I, like, didn't really know that trans existed until I was like 22. I didn't really understand. I heard the word cisgender when I was first like 24. And if this had been around in like the mid-2000s, when I was, the mid-noughties, when I was like a young kid, I just really, because I would have gotten it so much earlier, and it's a really entertaining book to read. So, The Art of Being Normal, Lisa Williamson, book 2, wait. Next is another sexuality identity story that I wish I'd been more aware of when I was younger, namely bisexuality. Just Juliet by Reagan has just come out, and has, I mean, a very provocative, like, it's very clearly a gay book. Let's be fair. I read this on like an ebook, so I didn't have to carry this around, but it's that's a cover. Just Juliet is also somewhat guilty of the same thing as Boy Meets Boy, in that I think it provides a really idyllic ideal of what it's like to be a queer teenager in the United States. However, it's still speckled with some of the road bumps, and is almost like a how-to guide, even for people who aren't from the LGBT community. It's also a book for allies, I think, of basically how not to react when somebody comes out to you, especially when you're bi. The main character, Lena, ends up falling in love with Juliet, and she has bumps along the road of like a boyfriend who then becomes quite homophobic towards her. She has a family that don't really understand what bi is, and are like, oh, why can't you just choose boys then? And all of that classic shit that bi people have to go through. And she has a best friend who's like, I know you're not gay. Like, she encounters all of the negative shit that especially bi people go through. And that's why I think that this book is really important, and I'd recommend it not only to queer kids, but allies and parents of queer kids as well, because it's kind of like a, hey, don't tell someone they're not bi. There's also a gay male couple in it called Lakin and Scott, and half the time I hate them, and then half the time I want to be them, because they're like in love at 17, and I'm like, fuck you and your happiness. I feel like Just Juliet balanced the road bumps that you get, as well as showing that you can be a really happy teenager when you don't conform to like gender and sexuality norms. And so I think that this is really important. Also came out, it's just come out, so check it out. Charlotte Reagan, Just Juliet, booyah. Some of you will know that I am dyslexic. I therefore love a good graphic novel. Give me a queer graphic novel that gives you like an academic look into the LGBTQ plus community, and I'm in heaven. I just bought this, and firstly, smells amazing. But also, I wish, like all of the books here, I wish that I'd read this when I was like 16, 17, because it's basically queer theory with pictures. It has stuff like, what is normativity? What is the queer agenda? What is structuralism? What is nature versus nurture argument? How does queer stuff and feminism intersect? How is heterosexual normativity a problem? It's brilliant. And let me just show you, like, this is what textbooks should be like at university. Like, this would make it so much easier to understand shit. I haven't even told you, like, the name of the book. It's called Queer: A Graphic History, and it's written by Meg-John, who's like a queer activist, and Juliet Scheele, who's done all of the pictures. And I wanted something like non-fiction in here because I love a good non-fiction book, because I like to learn things. And also, more queer theory in education, please. Thanks. Okay. On that note as well, speaking of ABCs of LGBTs, my mate Ashley Mardell is just about to come out with a book called called The ABCs of LGBTQ+. I haven't read it yet, but check out her videos here. I'll send a link, go to her video, and you can then pre-order her book as well, because she knows her shit. Like, she's become a really great queer like educator. Well done, Jella. I'm trying to read a lot more because well, for one, I'm still unemployed, and I also kind of want to relive my youth through young adult novels. I would love to hear what you guys would suggest in terms of, like, gay, LGBT, queer themed books that really helped you when you were, like, younger and coming out, especially those of you that are like 10 years or more younger than me, because I want to know what resources you guys are using. What did you use in order to come to terms, or what are you using as you come to terms with your sexuality or your gender? That would be really useful. I'm also missing, like, UK stories. Maybe there's like a market for that. Maybe I need to write a YA UK novel, says the dyslexic. The graphic history, queer graphic history, is the only one that's made by Brits, because we do make the best graphic novels in the world, just saying. But I would really like to know if you guys are aware of any other, like, young LGBT based stories that you think would be nice for me to read. Also, I was thinking of doing this for movies. What do you reckon? Got some in my head that I'd like to tell you about. Anyway, I've been Running with Oranges. Those of you who are missing the politics on this channel, it's coming back. I'm working on, like, a reaction to the first debate that we had with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump just now. Hopefully that'll be out in the next couple of days. As I said, unemployed, loads of free time. I will see you guys soon. I've been Running with Oranges. Toodaloo, goodbye. Subscribe. Love me, subscribe. Love me. Like, share. Engage. Shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. Ah. Quickly, this was also a hashtag ad video. It was the guys who published Just Juliet, Inkit, who gave me some money towards this video, and I was more than happy to, because I was making this video anyway, and they so happened to say, can you review this? And I was like, sure. So thank you, Inkit, for sponsoring this video. Cool. Awkward talking about money. Alright, I'll go now, bye.